My name is Stephen Quinn. I'm 68 years old, and I never thought I'd be telling this story at my age. For 40 years, I was a math teacher at the most prestigious high school in Chicago. My wife Mary passed away 5 years ago, but she left me a beautiful family. My son David and my granddaughter Sarah, the light of my eyes. Before I continue with the story, please click the like button, subscribe to William's Revenge Stories, and comment on where you're watching from. Your help is very important. That Tuesday morning, I was reviewing my documents just like every month. Bills, receipts, and bank statements. It was a routine I'd kept since I retired. The peace of my living room was interrupted by the sound of my cell phone. "Hello?" I answered without looking at who was calling. "Dad, how are you? I need to see you urgently." David's voice sounded strange, rushed. "I'm fine, son. Is something wrong?" No. "Well, yes. It's an incredible business opportunity, but I have to explain it in person. Can I come by in an hour?" Before I could answer, David had already hung up. Something didn't feel right. My son had never been the type to chase business opportunities. He was an engineer by profession. He had always worked for large companies, with a stable salary. At 11 o'clock sharp, the doorbell rang. David came in accompanied by Ryan, his brother-in-law. That man had never given me a good feeling. He was thin, with a smile that never reached his eyes, and a way of talking that always made it seem like he was selling you something. "Mr. Stephen!" Ryan exclaimed with excessive enthusiasm, giving me an uninvited hug. "It's great to see you looking so well." "Sit down," I told them, ignoring the comment. "What is this urgent visit about?" David settled on the sofa, looking nervously at his brother-in-law. It was Ryan who spoke up. "Mr. Stephen, we've come because we have a proposal that will change your life and the life of the whole family." He pulled out a tablet and started showing me presentations of a tourist resort on the coast of Florida. Photos of beaches, palm trees, and luxury buildings paraded across the screen while Ryan talked non-stop about investment returns and unique opportunities. "We just need an initial capital of $4 million, Ryan concluded, as if he were asking for pocket change. "And you, Mr. Stephen, have exactly that in your retirement savings." I froze. How did Ryan know the exact amount of my savings? Only David had access to that information. "Son, did you give him information about my finances?" I asked, feeling a tightness growing in my chest. David avoided my gaze. "Dad, it's a safe investment. Ryan has all the contacts. In 6 months, we'll double the money, I promise you." "No." My answer was firm. "That money is my security for my old age, and part of it is for Sarah's college education. It is not up for discussion." Ryan's face changed for a second before he recovered his artificial smile. "Mr. Stephen, with all due respect, you are missing the opportunity of a lifetime. I've already given my answer. Now, if you'll excuse me, I have things to do." I stood up to show them the meeting was over. Ryan gathered his things with obvious frustration, but David stayed seated, looking at me with an expression I couldn't decipher. "Dad, I need to talk to you privately," he said when Ryan went out to wait in the car. "I'm listening." "The truth is, I'm in trouble," he confessed, rubbing his hands. "I took out a large loan to invest with Ryan in a previous business. Things didn't go well, and now I owe a lot of money to dangerous people." I looked at him, incredulous. My son had always been responsible with money. "How much do you owe?" $1,200,000. I felt like I couldn't breathe. It was an absurd amount. "And what do you expect me to do?" "Lend me the money, Dad. I swear I'll pay you back. It's for everyone's safety, even Sarah's." Mentioning my granddaughter was a low blow. I took a deep breath. "I will give you $600,000, not a dollar more, and you will sign a document committing to pay it back in monthly installments." "But Dad, that's not enough." "That's my final word, David. Take it or leave it." My son looked at me with a mix of relief and something else I couldn't identify. "Resentment? Okay. Thanks, Dad. I'll come by tomorrow to do the transfer and sign whatever you want." I couldn't sleep that night. Something in David's eyes had left me unsettled. The next morning I kept my word. I transferred the money, and my son signed a promissory note, promising to pay back every dollar. The following weeks seemed normal, except that David started calling more often and visiting frequently, always asking about my health. He even took me for several preventive medical checkups. One Tuesday, my son arrived with surprising news. "Dad, I need you to come with me. I found an incredible place for you where you can rest and receive medical attention 24 hours a day. What are you talking about? I'm perfectly fine here in my house. But you live alone, Dad. What if you fall or suddenly feel ill? No one would be there to help you. I have neighbors, I have my cell phone. I don't need to go anywhere. Just come see the place. If you don't like it, I'll bring you right back. I promise. I reluctantly agreed. David took me to a senior living facility called Golden Horizons. The place was nice, clean, with gardens and friendly staff. A woman in her 60s, the director, showed us the facilities while David smiled and nodded enthusiastically. Your father will be very well here, Mr. Quinn, the director assured him. We have a full-time doctor, recreational activities, and the best care. As we toured the place, I noticed that some residents seemed confused or sad. Others looked at me with a kind of silent warning in their eyes. David, this place is nice, but I don't need this now, I said when the director stepped away for a moment. Maybe in a few years. Dad, it's all arranged. I paid for 3 months in advance. I was speechless. He had already paid, without consulting me. Take me home, David. Now, just stay for 1 week to try it. Please, Dad. His insistence worried me more and more. Why are you so determined to leave me here? Fine. 1 week. Not 1 day more. David smiled in relief. Perfect. I already brought some of your things, he said, pointing to a suitcase I hadn't noticed before. I'll visit you in a few days. That night I slept in an unfamiliar room, with a growing anxiety. Something was not right. The next day I tried to call David, but my cell phone had disappeared. When I asked for a phone, I was told I could use the one in the common area during its designated hours. 3 days passed with no news from my son. I went to the main office to ask for information. Excuse me. I need to make an urgent call to my son. The receptionist, a young woman with a bored expression, barely looked up. I'm sorry, Mr. Quinn, but your son left instructions not to be disturbed this week. He's on a business trip. What? I need to talk to him right now. I want to leave. That won't be possible, the director chimed in, appearing behind me. Your admission is registered as permanent, not temporary. Your son signed all the documents. My heart sped up. There must be a mistake. I only agreed to stay for 1 week. There is no mistake, Mr. Quinn. Furthermore, we have medical reports indicating that you need constant supervision, early onset dementia, according to the diagnosis. What? That's absurd. I'm perfectly fine. Patients with your condition often deny it, she replied with a condescending smile. Don't worry, you're in good hands. I tried to walk out the front door, but a security guard blocked my path. I'm sorry, sir. You can't leave without authorization. I was trapped. My own son had locked me in this place with a fake diagnosis. The question was, why? During dinner, I sat next to an older woman who seemed to watch everything with alert eyes. She introduced herself as Helen Smith. You shouldn't be here, she told me in a low voice as we ate. I saw you arrive. You don't have the lost look of those who need this place. My son tricked me, I confessed. I need to get out of here and find out what's going on. Helen leaned closer, making sure no one was listening. I work in the laundry. I hear things. Your son came yesterday when you were in group therapy. He spoke with the director about selling a property. A chill ran down my spine. My house? They didn't mention the address, but they were talking about papers you needed to sign. In that moment, I understood the magnitude of what was happening. The medical checkups, the constant questions about my health, the sudden interest in my well-being. It had all been to build a case of mental incompetence and take control of my assets. I need your help, Mrs. Helen. Do you have any way to communicate with the outside? I have a cell phone I hide in my locker. I can lend it to you tomorrow. Thank you. I need to call my granddaughter, Sarah. She'll know what to do. I barely slept that night, reviewing the events of the last few months. The pieces fit together in a terrifying way. The business with Ryan, the $4 million they wanted from me, my refusal. It all pointed to David finding another way to access my money. The next day, Helen kept her promise. She discreetly handed me an old cell phone during breakfast. It has low battery. Use it wisely, she murmured before walking away. I hid in a corner of the garden and dialed Sarah's number. My granddaughter answered on the third ring. Hello? Sarah, it's me, your grandfather, I said. my voice trembling. "Grandpa, where are you? Dad said you went on vacation to Miami with some old college friends." "That's a lie, my girl. I'm in a nursing home called Golden Horizons. Your father brought me here under false pretenses and won't let me leave." "What? I don't understand. Why would he do that?" "I think he wants to sell my house and take my savings. I need you to come, but don't tell your father anything. Can you do that?" "Of course, Grandpa. I'll go today after school." "I promise." The call cut off abruptly. The battery had died. I returned the phone to Helen, thanking her deeply. The rest of the day passed with agonizing slowness. I participated in the scheduled activities, pretending to adjust, while constantly watching the entrance, waiting for Sarah. Around 5 in the afternoon, I saw her arrive. My granddaughter, still in her school uniform, was arguing heatedly with the receptionist. I approached as quickly as I could. "Grandpa!" she exclaimed when she saw me, running to hug me. "Are you okay?" "Ma'am, unscheduled visits are not allowed," the director intervened, seeming to materialize out of nowhere. "I'm his granddaughter, and I have the right to see him," Sarah replied with a firmness that filled me with pride. "Your father is his legal guardian, and he must authorize all visits. My father is at his office." "I'll call him right now to give you the authorization," Sarah said, pulling out her cell phone with a defiant look. The director seemed to hesitate. "Fine. You have 15 minutes in the visiting room, not a minute more." We went to a small room where other residents were talking with their families. We sat in a far corner. "Grandpa, what's going on? Dad has been acting strange lately. A week ago he came home with a bunch of boxes and started packing your things. When I asked, he said he was putting them in storage while you were traveling." "Your father and your Uncle Ryan are planning something, Sarah. They wanted me to invest all my savings in some supposed business. When I refused, they started scheming this plan. I told her everything that had happened. The visit from David and Ryan, the forced loan, the medical checkups, and finally my forced commitment to the home. I need you to help me get out of here, Sarah. And I need to know what's happening with my house and my bank accounts. I'll get you out of here, Grandpa, I promise. But I have to be careful. If Dad finds out, he could stop me. There's something else you can do for me. In my study, in the second drawer of my desk, there's a blue folder with all my important documents. Deeds, bank statements, my will. I need you to hide it before your father finds it." Sarah nodded, determination in her eyes. "I'll do it today." "Your time is up," the director announced, approaching us. Sarah hugged me tightly. "I'll be back tomorrow, Grandpa, and I'll bring help." As I watched my granddaughter walk away, I felt a mix of hope and fear. I was in a race against time to regain my freedom and save the inheritance I had worked so hard to build. But more than that, I needed to understand how my own son had been capable of betraying me this way. Night fell over Golden Horizons, and with it, the uncertainty of what would come next. Would Sarah find the documents in time? Would she get help to get me out of this place? And what was David doing at this very moment with my house, with my savings, with the inheritance meant for my granddaughter? As I lay down on the strange bed in this room that was not mine, a certainty grew inside me. This battle was just beginning, and I, Stephen Quinn, at 68 years old, was not willing to give up without a fight. The second day after Sarah's visit was perhaps the longest of my life. Every passing hour was torture, imagining what David might be doing with my assets while I remained locked in this place. At breakfast, I looked for Mrs. Helen. I found her in a corner of the dining room, clearing trays. I approached her discreetly. "Good morning, Mrs. Helen. Do you know if my granddaughter has called or left any messages for me?" She shook her head. But leaning in a little, she murmured, "Mr. Stephen, be careful. The director has given special instructions about you. They are watching you more than the others." "What kind of instructions?" "To report any erratic behavior or attempts to communicate with the outside. And—" she hesitated for a moment. "They searched your room this morning while you were in the bathroom." A chill ran down my spine. They were building a case against me, looking for any evidence to justify my confinement. Thank you for letting me know. I'll be careful. I returned to my table and finished my breakfast, feigning normality. Minutes later, a nurse I hadn't seen before approached with a small tray of medications. "Good morning, Mr. Quinn. It's time for your medication." I looked at the 2 pills in the small plastic cup, one white and one yellow. There must be a mistake. I don't take any medication. The nurse smiled condescendingly. These are what your doctor prescribed, sir. For your condition. What condition? I'm perfectly healthy. Senile dementia is not considered perfectly healthy, Mr. Quinn, she replied, in a tone mixing forced patience and disdain. These medications will help you control the symptoms. I won't take anything that hasn't been prescribed by my primary care physician, Dr. Reyes, and he never diagnosed me with dementia. The nurse's smile disappeared. Mr. Quinn, don't make me call security. All residents must follow their medication regimen. In that moment, I understood I was in an extremely vulnerable position. If I resisted openly, they would use my rebellion as proof of my supposed mental condition. If I took the medications, who knew what effects they would have on me? With a quick movement, I took the pills and put them in my mouth, but I kept them under my tongue. I took a sip of water and pretended to swallow. Very good, the nurse said, satisfied. That's much better. As soon as she turned around, I discreetly spat the pills into a napkin and put them in my pocket. I needed to know what they were giving me. Mid-morning, during the group therapy session, which mostly consisted of childish games for seniors, I noticed the presence of a man who didn't seem to be regular staff. He wore a formal shirt and pants and was watching the residents closely, taking notes on a tablet. Who is that man? I asked Don Ramiro, a resident I had struck up a friendship with, in a low voice. He's one of the evaluators. He comes every week to update the clinical files. Evaluators for what? For our mental capacity, of course. He determines who can receive visits, make calls, or manage their own money. The information hit me like a ton of bricks. They were building a case to declare me legally incompetent. After the session, I returned to my room to rest. When I opened the door, I found David sitting in the room's only chair. His presence surprised me so much that I froze in the doorway. "Hi, Dad," he said with a smile that didn't reach his eyes. "How are you adjusting?" I closed the door behind me, holding back the rage that threatened to explode. "David, what is the meaning of all this? You promised me it would only be a week." "Dad, the doctors think it's best for you to stay here permanently." "Your condition." "What condition?" I interrupted, unable to hold back. "You know perfectly well that I'm healthy." David sighed as if he were talking to a stubborn child. "Denial is part of the illness, Dad. Your test results show significant cognitive decline." "That's a lie, and you know it." "What are you doing with my house? And my bank accounts?" A flash of surprise crossed his face, but he quickly regained his composure. "I'm doing what's necessary to ensure your well-being. As your son and closest relative, I have the responsibility to manage your assets now that you can't do it yourself. And does that include selling my house? The house where you grew up? Where your mother and I built our life?" David stood up, visibly uncomfortable. "Properties generate expenses, Dad. Taxes, maintenance. It's more practical to sell it and use that money to ensure your care here. Don't lie to me, David. This isn't for my well-being." "It's about the money, isn't it? How much is Ryan offering you to put me in here? You don't know what you're talking about. Paranoia is another symptom." "Enough!" I shouted, losing my patience. "Tell me the truth for once. What happened to the loan I gave you? Were you really in trouble, or was that just another lie to get money from me?" My son's face transformed. The mask of concern disappeared, revealing a hard expression I had never seen before. "You want the truth, Dad? Here it is. You were always a cheapskate, 40 years of work, and what do you have to show for it? An old house and some savings you don't even enjoy. Meanwhile, I have to kill myself working to support my family. Working and getting into debt with loan sharks, according to what you told me. Because I want to give Sarah what you never gave me. Opportunities, trips, a life without worrying about money. I paid for your college, David. I supported you when you wanted to start your business that failed. You never lacked anything. I lacked everything," he exclaimed, punching the wall with his fist. "While my friends traveled, I had to settle for the educational vacations you and Mom planned. While they had the latest technology, I had to wait years to have anything similar." I looked at him, unable to recognize my son in this man filled with resentment. "And that justifies what you're doing? Locking me in here with a false diagnosis to steal my money? I'm not stealing anything. I'm taking what's mine before you waste it or leave it to some charity like you always threaten to." In that moment I remembered our arguments about my will. I had always told him that a significant part of my estate would go to scholarships for low-income students, continuing my work as an educator even after my death. My will is still valid, David. And Sarah's part is guaranteed. A cruel smile appeared on his face. The will? It doesn't matter anymore, Dad. In a few days, the judge will sign the declaration of incapacity. I'll be your legal guardian and I can dispose of your assets as I see fit. Sarah won't allow it. She knows the truth. The mention of my granddaughter seemed to agitate him. Sarah, when did you talk to her? She came to see me yesterday. David turned pale. Impossible! She's not authorized to visit you. Well, she did, and now she knows what you're planning. My son walked to the door with purpose. I'll take care of that. And I'm warning you, Dad, if you continue with this attitude, you'll only make your stay here more complicated. The doctors can recommend special treatments for problematic patients. When David left, I collapsed onto the bed, exhausted. The veiled threat made it clear that my situation could get much worse. I needed to be smarter than my son if I wanted to get out of here. I spent the afternoon pretending to participate in the home's activities, always watching for any opportunity to contact Sarah. During dinner, Helen approached to clear my tray. Your granddaughter called, she whispered while wiping the table. She's coming tomorrow with a lawyer. Don't trust anyone else until then. That night, I hid the medications I had continued to pretend to take under the mattress. The nurse that morning had insisted on watching me swallow the pills, but I had managed to fool her again. I didn't know what effects they would have, but I suspected they were meant to keep me sedated and confused to reinforce the false diagnosis. I barely slept, thinking about the confrontation with David. His words kept ringing in my head. The resentment he had shown came from years ago, fueled by unfair comparisons and unfulfilled expectations. As a teacher, I had always preached the value of knowledge over material possessions. I had failed as a father by not understanding what my son truly needed. The next morning at breakfast, the director approached my table. Mr. Quinn, today you will have a full psychological evaluation. Doctor. Mendoza will see you in his office at 10. I haven't requested any evaluation, I replied calmly. It's protocol for all new residents, she explained with a smile that inspired no confidence, especially for those with your condition. I understood it was part of David's plan. They needed official documentation for the judge. At 10 o'clock sharp, an orderly escorted me to Dr. Mendoza's office. The doctor, a man in his 50s with a severe expression, received me without shaking my hand. Sit down, Mr. Quinn. This will take about an hour. The questions started innocuously. My name, age, date of birth. Then they became more complex. Days of the week in reverse order, historical dates, math problems. I answered everything correctly, noticing the slight surprise on the doctor's face. Good, he said finally. Now let's talk about your emotional state. Have you had any paranoid thoughts recently? What do you mean by paranoid? I asked, knowing exactly where he was going. You know, thoughts that someone wants to harm you, conspire against you? Doctor Mendoza, I believe my son is trying to steal my estate by locking me in here with a false diagnosis, and I have evidence to support it. Is that paranoia, or is it a legitimate concern? The doctor looked at me with more interest. What evidence do you believe you have? My son brought me here with the promise that it would be a temporary 1-week stay. Then, the director informed me that the admission was registered as permanent. Furthermore, I just found out they are processing a declaration of incapacity so my son can become my legal guardian and dispose of my assets. Mr. Quinn, these procedures are standard when a senior citizen can no longer care for themselves. But that's not my case. Until a week ago, I lived alone without any problems. I managed my finances, cooked, cleaned my house, and participated in a chess club twice a week. Does that sound like the profile of someone who is incapacitated? Dr. Mendoza made some notes on his tablet. Your concerns will be noted, Mr. Quinn. Now, let's continue with the evaluation. The rest of the session was similar. Every time the doctor tried to lead me toward answers that indicated confusion or paranoia, I responded with clarity and logic. In the end, he seemed frustrated. That's all for today. You may return to your activities. Can I see the results of this evaluation? The results are confidential and will be sent directly to the court. To the court? What court? The doctor seemed to realize he had revealed more than he should have. It's standard procedure, Mr. Quinn. Don't worry about it. I left the office with the certainty that David was moving quickly with his plan. The mention of the court confirmed he had already started the legal process to declare me incompetent. As I headed to the common area, I saw Sarah at the reception, accompanied by a woman with a professional appearance. My heart leaped with joy. "Grandpa!" my granddaughter exclaimed when she saw me. I ran to her and hugged her tightly. "Sarah, my girl, I'm so glad you came." The woman accompanying her stepped forward and offered me her hand. "Mr. Quinn, I am attorney Diane Hoffman. Your granddaughter has informed me of the situation. Please, go to the visiting room," the receptionist intervened, visibly uncomfortable with our meeting in the lobby. Once in the relative privacy of the visiting room, the lawyer spoke in a low voice. "Mr. Quinn, I must inform you that your situation is delicate. Your son has initiated a judicial interdiction process alleging that you are suffering from senile dementia and are not capable of making decisions for yourself." Judicial interdiction? The term sounded familiar, but I wasn't sure of its legal meaning. It's a process by which a person is declared incapable of managing their assets and exercising their rights. If the judge rules in your son's favor, he will become your legal guardian and can dispose of all your property. But that's absurd. I am perfectly healthy. I know. That's why we're here. We need to act quickly. Sarah, who had been unusually quiet, finally spoke. "Grandpa, I found the blue folder where you told me, but I also discovered something else." She took several documents from her backpack. "Dad has been forging your signature. I found these papers in his study." The lawyer examined the documents with a grave expression. "This is a power of attorney authorizing your son to sell your house and withdraw funds from your bank accounts. The forgery is obvious, but we need proof that you didn't sign it." "I would never sign something like that. There must be some way to prove it." "There is," Attorney Hoffman affirmed. "We need a handwriting expert to compare this signature with authentic samples of yours. Additionally, we must get an independent medical evaluation to certify your mental capacity." "The problem is I can't get out of here," I said, feeling the frustration grow, "and David already has doctors willing to declare me incompetent. That's why I brought this." The lawyer took a small recorder from her briefcase. "We need to record your testimony right now. Also, your granddaughter is going to discreetly record our conversations with the nursing home staff to document any irregularities." For the first time in days, I felt hope. Attorney Hoffman seemed to know exactly what to do. "We also need to know if your son has already disposed of any of your assets," the lawyer continued. "From what I could find out," Sarah chimed in, "Dad already sold Grandpa's car and took money out of one of his accounts. The house is in the process of being sold, but it hasn't been finalized yet." "How do you know all that?" I asked, surprised by the information. "I've been spying on his conversations with Uncle Ryan. They talk when they think I'm not home, but I can hear them from my room." "Sarah, that could be dangerous," I said, worried for my granddaughter. "If your father finds out you're helping us, I don't care, Grandpa. What he's doing isn't right. Besides," her voice broke slightly, "I heard something else." "What is it, my girl?" "Dad and Uncle Ryan plan to use your money to invest in a business in Colombia. Dad said they would be gone for a while, and that I would have to stay at a boarding school because it would be best for everyone." The news left me cold. They not only wanted to rob me, but they were planning to abandon Sarah as well. "That's not going to happen," I affirmed with determination. "Not while I'm alive." Attorney Hoffman took notes quickly. "This changes things. If we can prove intent to abandon, we could request immediate precautionary measures." Our time was running out. The director appeared at the door of the visiting room. "I'm sorry, but I must ask you to wrap up. Mr. Quinn needs to take his medication and rest." "Just one more moment," the lawyer requested. "We're finishing up reviewing some family documents." The director looked at us suspiciously but nodded and left. "Listen carefully," the lawyer said in a low voice. "Tomorrow, I will file an injunction to suspend any action on your assets. I will also request an independent medical evaluation. In the meantime, Mr. Quinn, it is crucial that you continue to feign normality. Do not confront the staff or your son." "How long will all this take?" I asked anxiously. "Legal processes can be slow, but given the urgent elements, I expect the judge to act within a week. Until then, you must hold on here." "A week is a long time," I murmured, thinking about the treatments David had mentioned. "Grandpa, I'll bring you this." Sarah took a small device from her pocket. "It's an emergency button. If you press it 3 times, it will send me an alert with your exact location. Use it if they move you or if you are in danger. I took the device, moved by my granddaughter's foresight. Thank you, my girl. I don't know what I'd do without you. The lawyer gathered her documents. We must go. We will be back tomorrow with updates. We said goodbye with a hug. As I watched Sarah and the lawyer walk away, I felt a mix of hope and fear. The legal battle was just beginning, but at least I wasn't alone anymore. That evening at dinner, Mrs. Helen approached my table again. Mr. Stephen, be careful. Your son was here after your visitors left. He spoke with the director for a long time and seemed very upset. Did you hear anything they said? Only fragments. Something about stricter measures and minimizing contact with the outside. They also mentioned a transfer. A transfer? To where? I don't know, but it didn't sound good. Maybe to a more restricted section of the home, or even to another place. The news alarmed me. If they moved me before Attorney Hoffman could act legally, it would be much harder to find me. Thank you for the warning, Mrs. Helen. I'll be alert. That night, as I tried to fall asleep, I heard footsteps in the hallway. I got up silently and peeked through a crack in the door. The director was talking to a man I hadn't seen before. I managed to catch fragments of their conversation. Tomorrow morning, before the lawyer arrives, the special wing is more appropriate for his condition. His son has already signed the authorization. I returned to my bed, my heart pounding. They were planning to move me early tomorrow to prevent the lawyer from seeing me. It was now or never. I pressed the emergency button Sarah had given me 3 times, hoping it would work as she had explained. Then I lay back, pretending to sleep, while my mind raced. I didn't know if Sarah would receive the alert in time, or if she could do anything about it. I only knew that when morning came, my fate could change dramatically. In the darkness of my room, with the sounds of the nursing home muffled by the night, I felt like I was living a nightmare. How had it come to this? My own son, the child I had taught to walk, to read, to be honest, now conspiring to strip me of everything and abandon his own daughter. The night wore on, and with it, the uncertainty of what dawn would bring. Would Attorney Hoffman arrive in time? Would Sarah receive my distress signal, or would I be transferred to a place where no one could find me? With these questions swirling in my head, I waited for sunrise, preparing for what could be the most decisive day of my life. The sound of keys startled me awake. It was not yet full dawn when 2 burly orderlies entered my room. "Good morning, Mr. Quinn," one of them said with false kindness. "We're moving you to an area more suitable for your treatment." "What time is it?" I asked, trying to buy time. 5:30. "We need to move quickly to avoid disturbing the other residents." I sat up slowly, evaluating my options. If I resisted, it would only confirm David's narrative about my supposed mental instability. "I need to use the bathroom first," I said. 5 minutes, the orderly replied, pointing to the small bathroom in the room. Once inside, I locked the door and quickly pressed the emergency button Sarah had given me 3 more times. It was my only hope. Then I washed my face and got dressed in the clothes they had left prepared. A gray sweatsuit that looked more like a uniform than normal clothes. When I came out, the orderlies escorted me down a hallway I didn't recognize. We went down an elevator to what looked like a basement. The contrast with the rest of the home was stark. There were no decorative plants or cheerful paintings that adorned the common areas. Just white walls, doors with small windows, and an unsettling silence. "What is this place?" I asked, feeling my heart accelerate. "The Special Care Wing," one of the orderlies replied dryly, "for residents who need constant supervision." They led me to a room at the end of the hall. It was similar to the last one, but with notable differences. It had no windows to the outside, the bed was bolted to the floor, and there were surveillance cameras in the corners of the ceiling. "Wait here. The doctor will be in to evaluate you shortly," the orderly said before closing the door. The click of the lock confirmed what I already suspected. I was completely isolated. I sat on the bed trying to stay calm. I mentally reviewed the events of the last few days, trying to understand how I had ended up in this situation. When had David's plan really begun? Was it after I refused him the $4 million for the business with Ryan? Or had he been planning it for longer? I remembered a conversation we had 2 years ago, when I told him about my plans to modify my will to include a scholarship fund. His reaction had been disproportionate. "You're going to give our family inheritance to strangers?" he had shouted. "It's not giving away, David," I had replied then. "It's continuing my life's work as an educator. Besides, You and Sarah will still receive the largest share. It's money that belongs to us, that belongs to your family." At the time, I attributed his reaction to a bad day. But now I saw the signs clearly: the resentment, the greed, the feeling that my money belonged to him by right. It had all been there, waiting for the perfect opportunity. My thoughts were interrupted by the door opening. A different doctor than Dr. Mendoza entered, accompanied by a nurse carrying a tray with medications. "Mr. Quinn, I am Dr. Barrios, a neuropsychiatrist." He introduced himself with professional coldness. "I am going to conduct an evaluation of your current state. Doctor, I am here against my will. My son is trying to—" "According to your file," he interrupted, consulting a tablet, "you suffer from senile dementia with paranoid and aggressive episodes. Are you aware of that? That is completely false. I am perfectly lucid." The doctor made a note without flinching. "Denial is typical in these cases. Have you been taking your medication regularly?" "I refuse to take medications I don't need and don't know what they contain." Another note. "Nurse, proceed with the morning dose. Today we will administer it intravenously, given the patient's resistance." The nurse advanced with a prepared syringe. I instinctively stood up, backing against the wall. "You can't medicate me by force. I have rights." "Your son, as your temporary guardian, has authorized this treatment," Dr. Barrios replied indifferently. "It's for your own good." "He's not authorized. There is no court ruling naming him my guardian." The doctor sighed, as if he were tired of dealing with problem children. "Security," he called over an intercom. Almost immediately, the two orderlies who had moved me entered the room. "Mr. Quinn needs assistance with his treatment," the doctor indicated. What followed was humiliating. The orderlies held me down on the bed while the nurse found a vein in my arm and injected the medication. I struggled, but it was useless against the strength of two young men. "This is assault," I said, feeling the cold liquid enter my blood. "I will report all of you." "You'll feel better soon," Dr. Barrios replied, ignoring my threat. "The medication will help calm your anxiety." Minutes after they left, I felt the effects. My mind began to fog. My limbs grew heavy. It was like being drunk, but worse because I remained lucid enough to understand what was happening and to feel fear. I was fighting to stay conscious when I heard raised voices in the hallway. It sounded like an argument. I struggled to concentrate, but the words reached my ears distorted. The door burst open. Through the fog of my vision, I could make out Attorney Hoffman, accompanied by a man in a police uniform and another person I didn't recognize. "Here he is," the lawyer exclaimed, rushing over to me. "Mr. Quinn? Can you hear me? They drugged me," I managed to articulate with difficulty. "This is unacceptable," I heard the lawyer say, addressing someone else. "The judge specifically ordered that no medication be administered until the independent evaluation. We have authorization from the responsible family member." A voice I recognized as Dr. Barrios's replied. "This court order invalidates any prior authorization." The man in uniform intervened. "Mr. Quinn is now under the temporary protection of the court." My mind struggled to process what was happening. Had they arrived in time? How had they found me? Attorney Hoffman leaned toward me. "Mr. Quinn, we're getting you out of here. The judge issued a protective order this morning." "Sarah," I murmured, remembering the emergency button. "Your granddaughter alerted us. She is outside with an independent doctor." With the help of the officer, they sat me up and began to guide me toward the exit. My legs barely responded, and my head was spinning from the sedative. In the hallway, the director of the home tried to block our path. "This is irregular. You can't take a patient without completing the discharge protocol." "What's irregular is the way you have detained and medicated Mr. Quinn," Attorney Hoffman replied firmly. "I have court orders for both his release and the seizure of his complete medical file, including the records of medication administered this morning." As we moved slowly down the hall, I saw Mrs. Helen watching from a safe distance. Our eyes met, and she gave a slight nod, as if saying goodbye. I owed that woman a great deal. When we reached the main lobby, Sarah ran to me, hugging me tightly. "Grandpa, are you okay? You look terrible." "I'm better now, my girl," I replied, forcing a smile. A middle-aged man approached and began to examine me, taking my vital signs. "They've given him a pretty strong cocktail of sedatives," he said with concern. "We need to get him to a hospital to monitor the effects and run full tests." "No hospital," I protested weakly. "Home. No, it's not safe to go back to your house right now, Mr. Quinn, Attorney Hoffman explained. Your son has a copy of the keys and might try something. We're taking you to a safe place where you can recover while we resolve your legal situation. At that moment, as if summoned by our words, David appeared at the entrance of the home. His face contorted when he saw us. "What is the meaning of this?" he demanded, advancing toward us. "Who authorized my father's release?" The police officer stepped in his way. "Mr. Quinn, I have a court order that temporarily suspends any authority you might have over your father. Please keep your distance." "This is ridiculous," David exclaimed, pulling out his cell phone. "I'm calling my lawyer right now." "That would be best," Attorney Hoffman replied calmly. "You should also inform him that the judge has ordered a freeze on all of your father's bank accounts and prohibited any transactions related to his properties until this case is resolved." David visibly paled. "Dad, you can't do this," he said, trying to get closer to me. "I'm just trying to protect you." "Stay away from my grandpa," Sarah intervened, placing herself between us. "You've already done enough damage." "You stay out of this," David yelled at his daughter. "Go to the car right now." "No," she replied firmly. "I'm going with Grandpa." David's expression hardened. "You're a minor." "You'll do as I say. The young lady can accompany us temporarily while her grandfather's medical evaluation is performed," the officer intervened. "If you have any objections, you can present them to the judge." David looked at all of us with barely contained rage. "This isn't over. I have medical proof of my father's condition. No judge will let him manage his own affairs." "We'll see," Attorney Hoffman replied. "In the meantime, I suggest you return any property or money you've taken from your father without authorization. It could be considered misappropriation." Assisted by Sarah and the doctor, I finally managed to leave the nursing home. The fresh morning air had never seemed so sweet, despite my semi-conscious state. They helped me into a van where an older woman was waiting for us. It took me a moment to recognize her. It was my late wife, Mary's sister. "Stephen!" Anne exclaimed upon seeing me. "My goodness, what have they done to you?" "Anne," I murmured, surprised to see her. "How?" "Sarah called me last night," she explained, taking my hand. "She told me everything. I came on the first flight from Houston. The ride to the hospital was a blur in my memory. The sedative was still in effect, and I drifted in and out of consciousness. Fragments of conversations reached my ears. Full toxicology screening. Possible side effects. The hearing is set for Monday. At the hospital, I was assigned a private room. A medical team attended to me immediately, taking blood samples and monitoring my vital signs. Sarah stayed by my side the whole time, holding my hand. "You're going to be okay, Grandpa," she kept reassuring me. "You're safe now." As the hours passed, my mind began to clear. The doctors confirmed I had been given a combination of antipsychotics and sedatives in considerably high doses. "It's surprising you can hold a coherent conversation so soon," commented the attending doctor. "An older person could have suffered serious complications from this pharmaceutical cocktail." When I was finally lucid enough, Attorney Hoffman came to see me to explain the legal situation. "We got an emergency protection order thanks to your granddaughter's quick action," she explained. "The judge temporarily suspended any interdiction proceedings and ordered an independent medical evaluation." "How did you manage to find me so quickly?" I asked. "When Sarah received your emergency alert at 5:30 inches the morning, she called me immediately. We already had the injunction prepared, so we presented it as an emergency to the on-duty judge. It was a fortunate coincidence that Judge Valenzuela was on shift. She is known for her strictness in cases involving seniors. And my assets? My house? We've managed to freeze everything temporarily. Your son cannot sell anything or withdraw funds from your accounts. However, we discovered that he already sold your car and withdrew approximately $1,200,000 from one of your accounts." "The loan I gave him," I murmured. "There were never any dangerous loan sharks, were there?" "I'm afraid not. From what we've been able to investigate, that money was transferred to an account in Colombia in the name of Ryan Fuentes." The mention of Colombia reminded me of what Sarah had discovered about David's plans. "And what will happen to Sarah?" "She can't go back to David after this. For now, the judge has authorized her to remain in her great-aunt Anne's care while the case is resolved. Long term, we could petition for a modification of custody if you are interested." "Of course I am. That girl is the most important thing to me. Attorney Hoffman nodded, taking notes on her tablet. Mr. Quinn, I must warn you that this will be a complex legal process. Your son will likely present the falsified medical evaluations and try to justify his actions as legitimate concern for your well-being. I understand. What do we need to do? First, we need you to recover completely. Then, you will undergo medical and psychological evaluations with independent specialists. We will also gather evidence of your life before the internment. Neighbors, friends, members of your chess club, anyone who can testify to your mental capacity. How long will this all take? It's hard to say. We could be talking weeks or even months. The thought of such a long process worried me, but I was determined to see it through to the end. I'll do whatever it takes. I will not let David get away with this. Attorney Hoffman smiled slightly. Your determination is admirable, Mr. Quinn. Now you should rest. Tomorrow will be a busy day with medical evaluations. After she left, Sarah and Anne returned to my room. My sister-in-law had brought homemade food, ignoring the nurse's protests. You need to get your strength back, Stephen, she insisted, placing a container of chicken soup on my bedside table. Hospital food doesn't nourish anyone. As I ate slowly, Sarah told me how she had gotten Anne's help. When I found the documents in your study, I also saw old correspondence with Aunt Anne. I remembered she's the only one in the family who never got along with Dad. She always said he was too self-interested. Your Aunt Anne was always very perceptive, I commented, exchanging a knowing look with my sister-in-law. Your mother and she were very close, even though they were so different. Mary was an angel who only saw the good in everyone, Anne said wistfully. I was always the suspicious one in the family. I never bought David's perfect son-in-law act. I wish I had listened to you more, I admitted. This is no time for regrets, Stephen. The important thing now is to recover and put that scoundrel in his place. I will never forgive him for what he's done to you, nor what he planned to do to my niece. Sarah, who had been unusually quiet, finally spoke. Grandpa, there's something else you should know. I found this in Dad's study. She took an envelope from her backpack and handed it to me. Inside were photographs of my house, but it wasn't as I remembered it. The furniture was gone, the walls were bare, and there were packing boxes everywhere. He's already emptied the house, I said, feeling a pang of pain. All our memories. Not everything is lost, Sarah replied. I managed to rescue some important things. The family photos, Grandma's letters, your awards from the school. I hid them at my friend Valerie's house. My clever girl, I said, feeling proud despite the sadness. You're just like your grandmother. She always thought of everything, too. The rest of the afternoon passed with medical visits and conversations with Anne and Sarah. Despite the circumstances, I felt a strange sense of peace. I was free from the nursing home, surrounded by people who genuinely cared about me. When night fell, Anne insisted that Sarah go with her to the hotel to rest properly. My granddaughter resisted at first, but finally agreed when I assured her I would be fine. I'll come early tomorrow, Grandpa, she promised, kissing my cheek. Don't worry about anything. After they left, I was alone with my thoughts. The hospital room, though sterile and impersonal, seemed like a palace compared to my cell in the special wing of the home. My mind inevitably returned to David. At what point had my son turned into this greedy stranger capable of betraying his own father? Were there signs I had missed during his childhood? I remembered David as a child, always comparing himself to his wealthier classmates, always wanting what others had. Mary and I tried to instill different values in him, to teach him that a person's worth wasn't in their material possessions. Apparently, we had failed. My thoughts were interrupted by a message on the cell phone Anne had lent me. It was from an unknown number. This isn't over, Dad. You have no idea who you're messing with. I can still prove you're incompetent. And as for Sarah, remember that I'm still her legal father. Think twice before you continue with this. The veiled threat chilled my blood. Not for me, but for Sarah. David was cornered, and that made him more dangerous. I immediately forwarded the message to Attorney Hoffman, who replied almost instantly, Do not respond. We will save this as evidence. We will increase security tomorrow. Rest easy. I tried to follow her advice, but sleep was slow to come. When I finally managed to drift off, I had nightmares where David was taking Sarah far away, where I was locked up in the home again, where I was losing everything I loved. I woke with a start at the first light of dawn. A nurse came in to check my vitals. You have a visitor, Mr. Quinn, she announced after completing her routine. Do you feel up to seeing him? Who is it? I asked, suddenly alert. An older gentleman. He says he's your friend from the chess club. I sighed in relief. Yes, please, send him in. Moments later, Michael Riley, my chess partner for the last 10 years, entered the room. His normally jovial face showed concern. Stephen, old friend, he said, shaking my hand. You had us worried. You disappeared without a word. It's a long story, Michael. I figured. Your granddaughter contacted me yesterday. She told me the basics. He sat in the chair next to my bed. We are all outraged. The entire club is willing to testify about your mental clarity. My God, you beat Dr. Morales just 2 weeks ago, and that man was a national champion. Their support deeply moved me. Thank you, Michael. I'm going to need all the help I can get. You already have it. In fact, I'm here as a messenger from the group. We all pitched in to hire a private investigator. An investigator? For what? Michael leaned in, lowering his voice. To investigate your son-in-law. That Ryan guy. There's something shady about him. Rodrigo, Fernando's nephew, works in the DA's office. He says the name Ryan Fuentes rings a bell from a previous case. This information surprised me. I had always distrusted Ryan, but I never imagined he could have previous legal problems. Do you think they might find something useful? It's very likely. Guys like that always leave a trail, and if we find something concrete, it could help your case. Proving that your son is associated with someone of dubious reputation would strengthen your argument that his actions weren't for your well-being. Michael, I don't know how to thank you for this. There's nothing to thank. We're friends, Stephen. Besides, everyone in the club owes you for organizing that charity tournament for Jimenez's granddaughter's surgery. We never forgot that. His mention of that event from 2 years ago reminded me how important my community was, the bonds I had built throughout my life. David might have tried to isolate me, but he hadn't counted on these connections. After Michael left, I received more visits. Neighbors, former colleagues from the school, even some parents of former students who had heard about my situation. Mid-morning, Sarah and Anne arrived, accompanied by Attorney Hoffman and a team of medical specialists who would conduct the court-ordered evaluations. Good morning, Mr. Quinn, greeted the lead doctor, a serious-looking neurologist. We are going to perform a series of comprehensive tests to evaluate your cognitive and neurological state. It will take approximately 3 hours. I'm ready, I replied, determined to prove my full mental capacity. The tests were rigorous. Cognitive assessments, memory tests, logical reasoning, even an MRI. I answered every question clearly. I solved every problem with precision, proving that my mind was as sharp as ever. At the end, the lead doctor seemed satisfied. Your results are excellent, Mr. Quinn. Well above average for your age group. Will that be enough for the judge? I asked. From a medical standpoint, there is absolutely no justification for a declaration of incapacity. Your cognitive performance is exceptional, and you show no signs of dementia or any other neurodegenerative disorder. Attorney Hoffman, who had been observing the entire process, nodded, pleased. This is exactly what we needed. Now, Mr. Quinn, we need to prepare for the hearing on Monday. The judge will hear from both sides before making a final decision. Will I have to see David? Yes, unfortunately. But we will be prepared. With these medical evaluations and the testimonies of your friends and colleagues, we have a solid case. While the lawyer was explaining the details of the legal process ahead, Sarah received a call that made her leave the room. When she returned, her expression was a mix of surprise and concern. That was Valerie, she said. Dad went to her house asking for me. He wanted to know if I had left anything there. My heart sped up. The things Sarah had rescued from the house were hidden precisely there. What did your friend tell him? That she didn't know anything. Her parents were home and didn't let Dad come in, but she's worried. Attorney Hoffman intervened immediately. We need to retrieve those items as soon as possible. They are important evidence, besides having sentimental value. I'll go right now, Anne offered. I want to go too, Sarah said. It's not safe. I objected. If David is looking for you. The protection order includes Sarah, Attorney Hoffman clarified. Her father cannot go near her. Even so, as a precaution, I will request that an officer accompany you. I finally agreed, though with reservations. Anne and Sarah left with the promise to return soon, accompanied by a police officer that Attorney Hoffman had arranged. I was left alone again, waiting for news. The hours passed slowly. I tried to distract myself with the television, but my mind kept returning to David, to his threats, to the possibility that he might try something desperate. Around noon, I received another unexpected visitor. Mrs. Helen, the employee from the home who had helped me, was at my door. "Mr. Stephen," she greeted shyly. "May I come in, Mrs. Helen?" "Of course, please come in. How did you know where to find me?" "Your granddaughter called me," she explained, sitting next to my bed. "She told me you wanted to thank me personally for helping you. She's a very polite young lady." "She is," I confirmed with pride. "How are things at the home?" "A disaster," she replied, lowering her voice even though we were alone. "The director is furious. She's afraid of an official inspection and potential lawsuits. They've been fixing files all day. And what about my son? Has he been back?" "Yesterday, right after you left. He was like a madman, yelling and threatening everyone. He demanded to know who had helped you escape. The director is desperate. They fear inspections." "Does she suspect you?" "I don't think so, but that's not what's important. I came because I overheard your son on the phone. He mentioned signed documents and a flight to Colombia this Sunday." The news alarmed me. If David was planning to flee, he would probably try to take Sarah. I need to inform Attorney Hoffman immediately. "There's more," Mrs. Helen continued. "Your son wasn't alone. He was with a dangerous-looking man, different from his brother-in-law. They were talking about plans for tonight and mentioned your name and your granddaughter's." I called Attorney Hoffman and told her what Mrs. Helen had related. Her reaction was immediate. "I'm on my way. We will reinforce security and alert the authorities about a possible attempt to take the minor out of the country." The lawyer arrived an hour later with a private investigator. "Your son bought 3 tickets to Bogota for this Sunday. 1 in his name, 1 for Sarah, and the 3rd for Ryan Fuentes." 3 tickets? Sarah would never go voluntarily. He probably planned to pressure her or take her against her will. That's why it's crucial to keep her protected until the hearing on Monday. At that moment, my cell phone rang. It was Anne. "Stephen, we have the things from Valerie's house. But there's a problem." David showed up and got very aggressive. The officer restrained him, but he threatened to take Sarah by force. We're on our way to the hospital with a police escort. My worry skyrocketed. The situation was getting worse by the minute. "Mr. Quinn," said Attorney Hoffman, "with this information, we can request more severe measures. I suggest we move Sarah to a safe, undisclosed location until after the hearing." "A safe place? Where?" "I have contacts who can help us. A safe house where she will be protected and comfortable." Although the idea of being separated distressed me, I understood it was the best option to protect my granddaughter. "All right. And what will we do about David's flight plans?" "We have already alerted immigration authorities. They won't be able to leave the country with Sarah, but we must be cautious. Men like your son and Ryan Fuentes might resort to illegal means." The investigator chimed in. "We found something else on Ryan Fuentes. He has a record for fraud in Colombia and is being investigated for money laundering. It seems they plan to use your money to finance illicit operations." This revelation confirmed my worst suspicions about Ryan, but it also increased my fear. If they were involved in illegal activities, the danger was greater than I had imagined. When Sarah and Anne arrived, escorted by the officer, my granddaughter ran to hug me, visibly frightened. "Dad is acting crazy, Grandpa. I've never seen him like this." "Don't worry, my girl. I won't let him hurt you." Attorney Hoffman explained the plan to move her to a safe place. Sarah resisted at first. "I don't want to be separated from my grandpa. What if Dad tries something against him?" "I'll be fine, Sarah. I have protection, and I'm in the hospital. This is for your safety." She finally agreed, but with one condition. "Promise me this will all be over soon and we can be together again." "I promise, my girl. After the hearing on Monday, everything will start to be resolved." We said goodbye with a long hug. As I watched Sarah leave with the security team, I felt a mix of sadness and determination. This separation was necessary to protect her, but it also strengthened my resolve to put an end to David's schemes. That night, in the solitude of my hospital room, I reviewed everything that had happened in the last few days. From a victim locked in a nursing home, I had become an active fighter to reclaim my life and protect my granddaughter. The road would be difficult, but I was not alone. My phone buzzed around midnight. It was a message from an unknown number. I know where Sarah is. If you want to see her again, sign the documents my lawyer will send you tomorrow. Otherwise, you'll never hear from her again." A chill ran down my spine. How could David know where Sarah was? Was there an insider among those helping us? I immediately called Attorney Hoffman, who calmed me down. "It's a bluff, Mr. Quinn. Sarah is safe, in a location only 3 people know about. Your son is desperate and resorting to intimidation. Even so, I spent a sleepless night, worried about my granddaughter and thinking about the confrontation that lay ahead. On Monday, at the hearing, I would finally be face to face with David before a judge. It would be the moment of truth. As the sunrise began to light my room, I made a decision. No matter how much time or effort it took, I would recover everything David had taken from me. Not just my material possessions, but also the peace and safety of my granddaughter. The legal battle was just beginning, but I, Stephen Quinn, at 68 years old, was more than prepared to fight to the end. For my dignity, for my freedom, and above all, for Sarah's future. Monday arrived faster than I expected. At 9 in the morning, I was in the courtroom, accompanied by Attorney Hoffman. I was wearing a formal suit that Michael, my friend from the chess club, had lent me. I wanted to appear before the judge with dignity. Anne was sitting behind us, along with several of my friends who had come to show their support. For security reasons, Sarah remained in the safe house, although she had been promised she could follow the hearing by video call. "Are you nervous, Mr. Stephen?" the lawyer asked. "A little. But more than anything, I'm ready to get this over with." The side door opened, and David entered with his lawyer, a severe-looking man with a leather briefcase. My son didn't even look at me. Behind them, to my surprise, Ryan appeared and sat in the back row. At 9:15 sharp, Judge Valenzuela entered the courtroom. She was a woman in her 50s, with a serious expression and a penetrating gaze. "Good morning. We are here to resolve the request for precautionary measures in the case of Quinn versus Quinn," she announced after the initial formalities. "We will begin with the plaintiff's side." Attorney Hoffman stood up and presented our case with clarity and force. My forced internment under a false diagnosis, the forced medication, the forgery of documents, the unauthorized sale of my assets, and the plan to flee the country. She presented the results of my independent medical evaluations, testimonies from my friends and neighbors, and the documentation of the plane tickets to Colombia as evidence. She also showed the documents with forged signatures, and the handwriting expert's analysis, which confirmed the forgery. "Your Honor, we are facing a clear case of elder abuse with the intent to misappropriate his estate," the lawyer concluded. "We request that the precautionary measures be upheld, that my client's full mental capacity be recognized, and that criminal proceedings be initiated against David Quinn for forgery, misappropriation, and abuse." When it was the turn of David's lawyer, he tried to present my son as a man concerned for his elderly father's health. My client acted solely out of concern for his father's well-being, who was showing signs of cognitive decline, he alleged, presenting the medical reports from the nursing home. The specialists at Golden Horizons confirmed the diagnosis of senile dementia. The judge examined the documents with a skeptical expression. "Can you explain why these medical reports differ so radically from the independent evaluations conducted this week?" The lawyer looked uncomfortable. "Evaluations can vary depending on the time and conditions, Your Honor." "And what about the plane tickets to Colombia scheduled for yesterday?" the judge asked. "Was that also for your father's well-being?" "My client was planning a family vacation. There's nothing illegal about that." "A vacation while your father was interned in a nursing home and you were processing his declaration of incapacity?" The judge did not hide her disbelief. The questioning continued. When David took the stand, he tried to maintain his story, but his answers became increasingly inconsistent. The pressure mounted when the judge asked him directly about the forged signatures and the destination of the money withdrawn from my accounts. "It was a loan my father authorized verbally," he insisted. "Do you have any proof of that verbal authorization?" "My father and I had that kind of agreement. We didn't need paperwork between us." The judge looked at me. "Mr. Quinn, did you authorize your son to withdraw that money?" "I loaned him $600,000, Your Honor, with a signed promissory note. I never authorized the withdrawal of the rest, nor the sale of my assets." The decisive moment came when Attorney Hoffman presented evidence we hadn't expected, recordings of conversations between David and Ryan, provided by the private investigator, where they openly discussed their plan to declare me incompetent, sell my properties, and flee to Colombia with the money. David's face turned pale as he heard his own voice. Once the old man is officially demented, we'll have free rein. We'll sell everything, transfer the money, and disappear. No one will be able to do anything. Ryan's voice responded. And your daughter? You know we can't take her without raising suspicion. I'll enroll her in a boarding school in Colombia. She's too attached to her grandfather anyway. She needs discipline. The room fell silent after the recording played. I looked at David, searching his eyes for any trace of the son I had raised, but I only found rage and shame at being discovered. Judge Valenzuela didn't need long to deliberate. Her ruling was decisive. This court recognizes the full mental capacity of Stephen Quinn and revokes any provisional declaration of incapacity. The precautionary measures on his assets are upheld, and the immediate return of everything sold or withdrawn without authorization is ordered. She paused and looked directly at David. Regarding David Quinn, I order his immediate arrest for the alleged crimes of document forgery, misappropriation, and abuse of a vulnerable person. This case will be referred to the District Attorney's Office for investigation. The court officers approached David, who seemed unable to believe what was happening. "This is ridiculous," he shouted, standing up abruptly. "I did everything for the good of the family. Mr. Quinn, control yourself, or I will add contempt of." "Court to the charges," the judge warned. At that moment, Ryan tried to slip out the exit, but another officer stopped him. "Mr. Fuentes will also need to remain to testify as a witness in the investigation," the judge ordered. As they handcuffed David, our eyes met. In his, I saw a mixture of rage and, for an instant, something resembling regret. I wanted to say something, but what words could express the profound disappointment of a father betrayed by his own son? Upon leaving the courthouse, I immediately called Sarah. My granddaughter had followed the entire hearing from her safe house. "Grandpa, we won!" she exclaimed, her voice choked with emotion. "Can I come back to you now?" "Yes, my girl. It's all over. We'll be together again soon. And Dad? What will happen to him?" The question pained me. Despite everything, David was still her father. "He will have to answer for his actions, Sarah. But don't worry about that now. The important thing is that we are safe." 2 hours later, Sarah arrived at the apartment Anne had temporarily rented for us. We hugged for a long time, both crying with relief and sadness for all that had happened. "Now what are we going to do, Grandpa?" Sarah asked as we ate dinner that night. "The house is sold, your things. We will recover what we can, my girl. The judge ordered the return of my assets. And the most important thing is, we have each other." Attorney Hoffman visited us the next day with mixed news. The good news: the buyer of the house had agreed to void the sale when he learned of the circumstances. The bad news: a large part of the money withdrawn from my accounts had already been transferred to Colombia, and it would be difficult to recover. As for Sarah's custody, the lawyer added, "Given that her father will be detained during the proceedings, we can request that you be appointed her temporary legal guardian." "Is that possible?" I asked, hopeful. "With Judge Valenzuela's support?" "Very likely." She was particularly concerned for the minor's well-being. 3 weeks later, we were able to return to our house. Although much of the furniture and personal items were gone, the essential part was still there, the home that Mary and I had built with so much love. Sarah settled into the room she always used when she slept over. Now it would be her permanent room. The judge had agreed to grant me temporary custody while the case against David proceeded. The trial took place 6 months later. David was sentenced to 5 years in prison for fraud, forgery, and abuse. Ryan, who turned out to have a history of fraud in Colombia, received a longer sentence for being a repeat offender and for his role in the scheme. A year after that terrible experience, Sarah and I had adapted to our new life together. My granddaughter was thriving in her studies, and I had returned to tutoring math, more for pleasure than for need. One afternoon, I received a letter from prison. It was from David. I opened it with trembling hands. "Dad, I don't know where to begin. Maybe with the only thing that matters. I'm sorry. I know these words mean little after what I did, but I need to say them. In the solitude of this cell, I've had a lot of time to reflect. Greed and resentment blinded me. I betrayed your teachings. I betrayed your trust. And worst of all, I abandoned my own daughter. I'm not asking for forgiveness, because I know I don't deserve it. I just want you to know that I finally understand what you always tried to teach me. That true wealth isn't in money, but in family, in values, in being a person of integrity. Take care of Sarah. Give her all the love I failed to give. She deserves a bright future, far from my mistakes. David. I read the letter several times with tears in my eyes. I didn't know if I believed his repentance, but I decided to keep the letter. Maybe someday, when the wounds had healed a little, Sarah would want to read it. That evening, as my granddaughter and I were eating dinner, she asked me about something I had been avoiding. "Grandpa, do you think we'll ever be able to forgive Dad?" I thought about my answer carefully. Forgiveness is a long road, Sarah. It's not something that happens overnight. But yes, I believe that one day we will be able to find peace with what happened. "Do you miss him sometimes?" she asked in a small voice. "I miss the son I raised, the father he once was to you. And I hold on to the hope that that man can find his way back, even if it's a long and difficult process." Sarah nodded thoughtfully. "I miss him sometimes too. Not the dad who did those terrible things, but the one who used to take me to the park when I was little." That night, as I watched my granddaughter studying in the living room, I understood that despite the pain and betrayal, we had found a new beginning. David would have to live with the consequences of his actions, but Sarah and I had decided not to let resentment define our future. Life had taught me a painful lesson about greed and betrayal, but also about resilience and the healing power of unconditional love. At 68 years old, I had lost my son, but I had gained a new opportunity to raise my granddaughter and pass on the values that truly matter. As I looked at the stars from the porch of my recovered home, I felt a peace I thought was lost forever. The road had been hard, but we were finally home, and this time no one could take it from us. If you want to know more real stories like mine, subscribe to my channel and activate the notification bell. Thank you for joining me in this story. Your support gives me the strength to keep telling the truth.